this. Listen again at www.radioenrg.net.
Hello and welcome to the Football Roundup. This is your host David Ronney, and I'm joined by the likes of Luke, Barry, Bryce Donaldson, and returning analyst today is Gregor Kerr. So welcome back to the show, Gregor. Before we start the show, I'm going to dive into all that Champions League action from last night. I'll be reading today's teaser as always. So, Arsenal's 10-2 aggregate score against Bayern Munich in the Champions League competition, the last 16 stage ending last night, was the biggest losing margin for an English club in European football history. So, the teaser is, what is the highest scoring Champions League fixture of all time? I'll repeat that once more. So today's teaser is, what is the highest scoring Champions League fixture of all time? And if you do know the answer, please do tweet in at Radio ENRG or at Football ENRG using the hashtag FRU Show. So, as I previously just mentioned, we're going to talk about Arsenal. They had a Groundhog Day fixture against Bayern Munich. Yes, they did lose 5-1 again, making it a 10-2 aggregate overall, increasing speculation regarding the future of Arsene Wenger. We did have a poll regarding the future of Arsene Wenger, if he will stay at the club, if fans want him in or out. We'll jump into that, the answer from that poll very shortly. Gregor, why do Arsenal struggle every year for the past? Since 2010, they've been struggling. 2010, 2011 season, they've remained in that last 16 position. Previously, the last time they progressed after last 16, that was in the 2009-2010 season, where they did go out in the quarterfinals to Barcelona on a 6-3 aggregate score. So why do they struggle every year to get past that last hurdle of the last 16?
I think it's a mixture of things. I mean, I think the plain fact is their team isn't good enough to compete with the likes of Barcelona and Bayern Munich. They've been relatively unlucky. They've drawn them, I think, four or five times in the last 7 years. So I suppose their team isn't good enough to get to the latter stages, but really you'd be expecting them to get to the quarterfinals at least most years. It's kind of hard to pinpoint what it is. I mean, maybe it's a mentality thing. Maybe they don't believe they can get past that. They think that's their limit. But it's definitely an issue. It has been an issue for far too long now for Arsenal.
Bryce, Arsenal have conceded 32 goals in the last round of 16 since that 2010 stage where they've been remained in the last 16. 32 goals they've conceded and only scoring 16. Is it a matter of players not showing up for these big games?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of players that don't really show up for Arsenal. One of them, to go back to that point about the defence, they're conceding 32 goals. Their main defender these days is Koscielny, and once he went, so did their defence. I mean, if you've got a player that influential in your team, you need them to be on the pitch for the full 90 minutes, and you need them to also step up and kind of lead from the back almost. But ever since he went, Arsenal fell apart. So there is a problem with these players not showing up for big games, as well as, Giroud. I don't think he played last night, did he?
He did, he missed a sitter.
Alright, but well, there you go. So if you can't see him on the pitch, he's not making a big enough impact.
Look, is it simple as that? As soon as you lose a key player like Koscielny, that the team crumbles?
I think so, but in the case of last night, the issue with Koscielny being sent off was that obviously they were a man down, but they'd also conceded a penalty in that instance because it was a foul on Lewandowski in the box, which of course Lewandowski put away. And at that point, Arsenal were actually on the upper hand. They were obviously 5-1 down going into the game, so it's going to be a difficult task to get back. But Bayern scoring, I think it killed the mentality. I just don't think Arsenal have, I think it's mental strength almost. I think they crumbled a little bit. Obviously there was an uphill climb, but it's like they just gave up the minute Bayern scored, and then of course they went to score another 4 goals. But there are a number of key individuals in the Arsenal team, Koscielny being one of them, Sanchez obviously is documented, Ozil, but they've got a lot of talented midfielders. But as Bryce touched upon there, you need key players to do the best they can. And Giroud last night, I know he comes under a lot of stick from fans, and he has had some decent games at the start of the Premier League, but he really should have scored a header in the second half yesterday. And Lucas Perez wasn't any better. So I think for Arsenal, I don't want to get too much into the Wenger conversation just yet, but that's a big debate to be had. But something does need to change because everything's just the same there. It was too predictable what happened last night, to be honest.
Yeah, if you did miss the game, Arsenal did go ahead in the 20th minute thanks to Theo Walcott. They were leading into the half-time, look the stronger side in the competition, and that similar to the fixture they played previously. They were 1-1 with Bayern Munich going into half-time. They did look a lot stronger going into that second half, but the similar situation happened with Koscielny went off injured in that first leg. In the second leg he was sent off, and after that, goals from Lewandowski, Robin, Douglas Costa and 2 from Vidal at the end meant that Bayern Munich got a 10-2 aggregate and a 5-1 win on the night. Gregor, Arsenal finished their group with 14 points, and a tough group you would say with the likes of Paris Saint-Germain, Ludogorets and Basel, but how is it that they finish top of a group and then just crumble instantly afterwards?
I mean, I think they seem to. They never really have any issue getting through the group. Usually, I mean, I think they've every season Arsenal's been there. Wenger's been there. They've qualified from the group stage, so they always seem to be mentally up for the group stage. They always, they never really have much problem. I just don't think they're good enough to really compete at the latter stages. I think they'd improved in a lot of positions. I mean, it's hard to tell really what changes once they get to the knockout stage. But they've been a wee bit unlucky with some of the draws. But I mean, when they played Monaco, for example, a few years ago, they just looked a completely different team than they did in the group stage. And it's hard to pinpoint what it is. I mean, it maybe is a mental issue that's they kind of reach a block once they get to that stage. But it is hard to pinpoint what changes once they get to the round of 16.
And Sanchez did start last night. There was a lot of controversy, which we'll jump into later, show regarding Sanchez being left out that game against Liverpool, which they did lose by 3-1. But regardless of this, Sanchez isn't their top goal scorer. Bryce, I'm going to jump to you about this. Arsenal's top goal scorers in the Champions League have been Theo Walcott and Mesut Ozil with 4 goals. So is it the forwards not performing for these competitions?
Yeah, it's a really weird one, that. I mean, Mesut Ozil himself is, a brilliant player. On his day, he can be world class. But at the end of the day, he's a midfielder. So you're thinking, why aren't Arsenal's forwards getting more goals, especially in the Champions League, this big stage where they need them to perform more than anywhere else? So, I mean, you're looking at folk like Giroud, Sanchez, and, I mean, you've got attacking there, Theo Walcott, Iwobi, and, I mean, they're just clearly not doing enough.
Look, there's been a lot of outcry from the Arsenal fans in that Lucas Perez was meant to be their star signing of the summer, has not been given enough game time. Should he have been given that game time in these kind of games where he can make an impact and prove himself?
Well, I think yes and no, because Giroud has performed okay, I think, in the Premier League this season. In Champions League, not really so much, but I generally, from what I've seen of Lucas Perez, don't think he's good enough to be that influential big man up top that you need to win the big Champions League tie. I think, as Gregor touched on at the start of the show, you could argue Arsenal have been unlucky with their draws, because they've faced Bayern Munich umpteen times. It's the running joke, and the two clubs had banter about it when the draw was made at the start, a couple months back. But they do tend to face hard opposition. But the fans would argue at the same time there's no reason why they shouldn't be beating this opposition if they want to be ambitious and go on to win a Champions League. But to get back to the point of the original question, I don't think the Champions League was the best way to try, and perhaps with Giroud not playing well all the time, they could have sort of mixed and matched the two and given one start the next game in the Premier League, and see who can establish better. Or, of course, you could play them together, but I don't know how that would work with the rest of the players we've got in the team. But ultimately, the striker position in Arsenal has always been an issue since Thierry Henry left, in all honesty. Actually, they had, Van Persie as well after that. But since then, they've struggled, definitely, and they do need somebody else to come in and sort of bag the important goals for them, I guess.
The discussion that's been on the tip of a lot of Arsenal fans' lips is the discussion of Wenger in, Wenger out. A lot of people thinking that even though Arsene Wenger has achieved great things at the club, it is his time to go. We did carry a poll on Twitter, thanks to those who did help us out. We got 16 of you who voted in, and it was a consensus of 62% for Wenger out and 38% for Wenger in, but we're going to come to the panel and see what they think. Personally, I feel that I agree with a lot of Arsenal fans that he does have a legacy, but there is a time to say goodbye. Similar to that song sung by the Italian, I forget the name of it, but I think it is basically time to say goodbye. Gregor, is it time?
I think it is. I think it is about time for Arsenal to leave Arsenal. I mean, there's no even denying the unbelievable job he's transformed the club completely. But I don't see where he can take them next. I think that he's reached his limit there. They don't seem to improve at any somewhat every year at the same level, European and domestic. I don't think he can push them any further. I think we discussed it earlier. Actually, I think possibly if they get a new manager, it could be a sense that they need to take a step backwards to take a step forwards. Maybe face a year at the Champions League if they get a new manager in. But ultimately, if they change tactics under a new manager, they could progress to better things. I think the thing about a good manager is he needs to know when the time is right to leave his legacy and leave the club. And I think that time is probably approaching for Arsene Wenger. Yeah.
Do you agree with that, Bryce? Do you think the fact that maybe a break from European competition, even say the Europa League, can give not even just Arsene Wenger a chance, but another manager who may come in the chance to focus on league and retain that league title if not won so many years?
I mean, it's a really difficult one. I mean, Arsenal fans have kind of got used to the Champions League. It's been a mainstay for them for so long that they've just gotten used to it. It's something that they always expect. Bringing in a new manager, I kind of feel like, I think Gregor summed it up quite well, and it happened with Manchester United when they lost Fergie. They kind of crashed out of the Champions League and went into Europa League, and well, they didn't even have European football for a while. And I think if they do that, if they let Arsene Wenger go, I have a feeling that Arsenal could go down the same route, but I don't know if they'll be able to build back up quite as quickly as Man United, because personally I don't think that Arsenal have the same squad depth and kind of management behind them like Man United do. But so it'll be a real difficult one for anyone to come in if Wenger was to leave.
Does the team need to change, Luke?
It's a good question, because I think we discussed this before as well, is the actual players themselves don't really get much stick, and there's a lot of players that have been at Arsenal for several years now, at the same time as Arsene Wenger, yet it's never ever their fault. The players they have on paper are all actually technically very good. In some ways you could argue they're overstocked in the midfield department. You have a lot of talented players that kind of want to play in the same position but they can't. I think ultimately it's 50-50 on the players' fault and the manager's fault. A lot of people argue the manager's job is there to motivate the players and get them to play well, but responsibility has to be on the players' shoulders to perform. You're getting paid like £100,000 a week to play football, so you need to be doing something. Ultimately for Wenger though, I don't think he's lost. I think to say he's lost the dressing room is a bit strong, but if he doesn't leave now, I don't see when he can leave, to be honest. If he stays another season and it goes wrong again, his Arsenal fans will be so forgiving of him, they'll probably be more bitter than anything else to effectively lead them on a downward slide. They are in a real struggle to get top four now this season in the Premier League itself, and if he doesn't do that, then I think it'll definitely be curtains. But personally, I think it is time for him to go, because as Gregor said, you need to understand when it's time to walk away, and I think ultimately for Arsene Wenger now is that time.
Greg, you yourself being a Spurs fan, do you think if Spurs do finish above Arsenal this season, that'd be the final nail in the coffin for Arsenal?
I think it will, yeah. I think there's been a lot of times, and possibly people think Spurs are going to finish above Arsenal, but this year's possibly one of the more likely ones. And I think I think Arsenal fans definitely wouldn't accept that. I think the pressure would maybe be too great for them to stay there. Yeah, I think that it could be a possibility, and it could just be the final nail in the coffin for the fans and for Wenger if it happens.
So we're going to discuss as well who, if Arsenal was to leave at the end of the season, who could replace him, and we will submit our decisions on the @Radio ENRG page, and for those listening can choose who they agree with and who could potentially replace the manager. So I'm going to go to you first, Gregor. Who do you feel could replace Wenger if he was to leave?
I've heard people talk about the likes of Eddie Howe, maybe a young manager, but I don't think that's right. I think it's too big a step up. For me, it would be, and a lot of people have said that, as Diego Simeone, because he can completely change the mentality, especially in big European games like he has for Atletico. They don't go in doubting themselves, they go in thinking they can get a result, and I think if they got on Diego Simeone, I think it could help them domestically and in European competition as well. So,
Bryce,
yeah.
What about you?
I think I'd like to see Claudio Ranieri take up a big role in English football, so I think he'd be the one for me.
What about you, Luke?
I think it depends if Arsenal are looking for immediate results or like a build-up sort of campaign to something greater. I personally think it should go down the second route, and that's why I think somebody like Ronald Koeman would be a good person to get in. But
I'm going to go different. I'm going to say Luis Enrique, saying that he has confirmed that he is leaving Barcelona in the season, and his strict tactics is what maybe how he did use at Barcelona is what maybe is needed at Arsenal. Maybe instead of enjoying your football, maybe it needs to get down and almost dirty and back to the way football should be played and at a professional standard. The other result from last night, it was another Groundhog Day fixture, whereas Real Madrid beat Napoli by 3-1. It was also a 3-1 score in the first leg at the Bernabeu. Napoli being at home for this fixture. Mertens, who I believe did score as well at the Bernabeu, he did start off the scoring, which he did at the Bernabeu. Sergio Ramos getting 2 goals, and then Mertens also getting getting 1 goal, Mertens getting an own goal, and then followed that was Morata in the 91st minute to seal Real Madrid's place in the quarterfinals. Can Real Madrid go and win the competition, Gregor?
I mean, for me, they're favourites to win it. I think the squad is really very, very strong, probably the strongest in Europe at the minute. Yeah, I mean, I can't remember the last team to retain the Champions League, but I mean, it's definitely a feat that they can repeat this year. They just, I mean, to be fair, Napoli did push them. I mean, I know it was, what was it, 6-2 in aggregate or something like that, but it was a lot closer than the scoreline suggests. So, yeah, I possibly fancy Real Madrid to retain it.
Who could potentially stop Real Madrid, do you think, Bryce? Like, you've still got the likes of, say, Bayern Munich, who could be faced next round, and then you've still got Barcelona, Paris Saint-Germain, Borussia Dortmund, or potentially Benfica playing tomorrow night, and you've got Leicester, Sevilla. But who would you see realistically has a chance of stopping that Madrid team?
I mean, realistically, lots of the teams that you've just said there, if they're on their day, can easily stop Real Madrid. I mean, Bayern Munich and the quality of German football overall is really, really obvious to see. Clearly by the way that they just dropped Arsenal there. So, I mean, Bayern Munich might even be favourites over Real Madrid if they were to play them. And I mean, but Dortmund, if they had a good game, there's no reason why they couldn't. There is a number of teams that could stop Real Madrid, but that's saying that as well. They're a good team. It's going to be hard for anybody.
Cristiano Ronaldo, hasn't really shined in the Champions League this season. Is that maybe a concern? Do you think that maybe could potentially be the beginning of the downfall? Or is this just a one-season gap, you could say?
I think comparing him to last season is always a dangerous thing. I know you didn't say that, but I'm just thinking about how he scored that many goals in the group stage last season. He was unlucky last night. He hit the post after rounding the keeper last night, which argue you say he could have scored. I don't think it's a major problem because they have enough great individuals in that team now for it to not haunt them too much. I don't think it's really the downfall of Ronaldo. I think we'll still see another good couple of seasons out of him where he continues to perform at that best because he's a consummate professional. I don't know a single player that works harder than him to be the best, as it were. Real Madrid as a whole package, there is no reason why they can't win. But for me, I feel like they go behind in too many games now, and I think if they come against the team that's ready to punish them for that, then that's going to cost them. For me, I would actually put PSG as my favourites. The way they dispatched Barcelona at the Parc des Princes was mesmerising, really. I know Barcelona were not on their best game, but if they can play like that against the big teams, they will surprise them.
And the games tonight are Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain. Barcelona have to come back from a 4-goal deficit in the first leg. Paris Saint-Germain getting goals from Di Maria, 2 from Di Maria, 1 from Julian Draxler and 1 from Ezra Cavani. But Bryce, Barcelona would have to make Champions League history from coming back from a 4-goal deficit. No team has done it in the second leg of competition, but could Barca write history tonight?
Well, I mean, you'd say if there was going to be any team to do it, it would be Barcelona. Definitely, there's no questions about their attack of Neymar, Suarez and Messi. I mean, they're feared throughout the world almost by every defence for a reason. They score so many goals, they're so hard to stop. So for that reason, I'm going to say if Barcelona did it, even though it would be, breaking records and everything, it wouldn't actually be that surprising. I mean, there's so many times where they've scored more than 4 goals this season and last season. So, yeah.
Greg, if Paris Saint-Germain do hold on to this win, as impressive when they do have currently the scoreline even, can they win the competition? They've never done it, but do you think this could be their year?
It could be the year. I mean, I think they did relatively well last year. I don't see why not. I mean, they look really strong against Barcelona. I mean, they probably produced the best Champions League performance of the season in the first leg. And they've got a strong midfield. They score a hell of a lot of goals. They're strong at the back, and their squad is probably just as good as most teams in the Champions League. It's hard to tell because it's so tight at the top teams in the Champions League. There's not really much in between them, but I definitely think they're a candidate to maybe go on and win the competition. Yeah.
Look, last season and previous seasons, Zlatan Ibrahimovic has been that star figure at Paris Saint-Germain, now being their all-time goal scorer for the club in their history. Can you give the PSG players more credit now that they've not had that stature, that leader? Now you see at Manchester United with Zlatan. Do you think it's more credit's due for these PSG players for leading on without him? You
could argue that, but then there's probably the counter-argument to that with the main man not being there, it forces the rest of the players to step up and sort of maybe work more as a unit. PSG have recruited quite well, particularly in January, getting Julian Draxler, and that was a fantastic signing. Angel Di Maria's looked more potent, I think. Last season he wasn't quite as dangerous to defenders as he has been this year. The free kick he scored against Barcelona was ridiculously good. But I think Cavani deserves a little bit of credit because I think people underrate him. They think he's not that great a striker and he's not amongst the world elite. But without Ibrahimovic, it's his time to step up, and he's doing enough for him to get by, even though they're not actually winning the league in France, but that's a separate matter. But not having that talismanic figure in Ibrahimovic there will have an effect in the dressing room. I'm not a good enough analyst to tell you if that's positive or negative, to be perfectly honest with you. But it definitely has forced the rest of the players to step up their game and chip in with the important goals.
And finally, the other game tonight is Borussia Dortmund. They are facing the mighty Fika, the big team in the studio for our host Bryce Donaldson. Bryce, Benfica do have a 1-0 lead going into this fixture. Can they hold on? Can they even get an away goal that maybe can secure the next place in competition and maybe be a massive upset in the Champions League?
I mean, hopefully. When Benfica kind of won that game, I was myself a wee bit surprised. So, they do. The thing with Benfica is they do have quite a lot of youth, and they do like to play their youth. So, with this kind of young energy on the pitch, they might be able to last a wee bit longer in Dortmund. But in saying that, Dortmund themselves do have quite a good youth academy as well. So, it can go either way. But, being realistic, it wouldn't be unheard of for Dortmund to make a comeback.
Okay, and that's the Champions League results and fixtures from last night and tonight. We will also be discussing next week's fixtures that will include the likes of Manchester City. They're going away to Monaco, and Leicester City hosting Sevilla. If they can potentially get a goal or even two to progress into the quarterfinals and continue that run they've had in the past few games, have been Hull and Liverpool. We're now going to go to the Scottish section, go to the Scottish Cup. Gregor will be loving that. That is correct, yes. Hibs have made it to the semi-finals. They went so many years without winning the Scottish Cup, and now they look like they could win it again. Yes, they're up with a fixture against Aberdeen. They did beat Ayr United by 3-1 at Easter Road. Gregor, how confident would you say are you into this game against Aberdeen? There's a lot of speculation going around. Derek McInnes, maybe his mind's not in the right place. Do you think this is a prime opportunity for Hibs to take advantage of that?
I definitely wouldn't say Hibs are favourites. I'd say Aberdeen are favourites, but I think it's probably the best draw that Hibs could have hoped for out of all the Celtic, them and Rangers. But I mean, Hibs look a different team when they play in the Cup. They look a lot more energetic, look a lot more up for it. Aberdeen, I mean, I know Hibs fans are confident, but people need to remember Aberdeen are the team second in the league. So it'll be a tough game, but I think it'll be a very good one because I do see it being quite a close game. It's tough to call a winner out of that. I'd love to say Hibs could win it and get to the final, but I don't see there being a lot between the teams, to be honest.
Who would you say is the most influential player in that Hibs team?
I mean, there's a lot of players. I mean, with Cummings, God knows where Hibs would be without Cummings' goals this season. I think he's on 18. I think I saw a stat. He's been the most clinical striker in Scotland this season. So Hibs would be. I don't think it might still be in the Scottish Cup if it wasn't the team, but yeah, I mean, McGinn's another big one as well. They looked lost a bit around the Christmas period when he was out of the team. And it's also interesting. He's actually on a booking going at the semi-final. So another booking and he misses the final potentially. So he'll need to avoid that.
Bryce, do you think Aberdeen's goal is to maybe get into that? If they do get into the final, I think Bookie's favourite is Celtic to reach that final against Rangers. But do you think that's their motivation, not against Hibs, but maybe to get to the final, to get almost revenge against Celtic after that League Cup defeat?
It's a difficult one because Aberdeen themselves are a team with, Scottish football-wise, a lot of quality. They do have players that can turn a game around, and I think they were almost unlucky against Celtic. It wasn't a massive score for Celtic. Was it 1-0?
It was 3-0
was
in the
it?
League Cup final.
Oh,
But they did hold Celtic for a long time when they were playing at home early in the season. It was a 1-0 win for Celtic, and it was Tom Rogic who did get the goal in that game.
Right.
And then it was a quite high scoring game after that. So you could say that it is quite level, but with Celtic's team, it is quite difficult for any team to come up against them. Look, the Celtic and Rangers clash that's going to be in this weekend, which we'll touch on soon, but in the Cup, does Rangers have a chance of an upset, or is it going to be another routine win for Celtic?
I think with a game as big as that, either of the teams has a chance, because it's so much more than the actual skill on the pitch. It's about how they react to the fans, how they react to the pressure of the day. Ultimately, Celtic will probably want, of course they're going to want to win, but obviously, I think, was it last season where Rangers knocked Celtic out the Cup in the semi-finals?
Yeah, it was a 2-2 draw that went to penalties, and
Yeah.
they did progress, but they did meet Hibs in the final, and I think we all know what happened there. So, do Rangers have a chance then?
I would say yeah, but obviously Celtic proved themselves again at the weekend against St Mirren, where they were 1-0 down, they ended up winning the game 4-1. So the quality they have in that team is, even if they are behind, they can come back, and if they score early, then it can demoralise teams. But of course, this is the Glasgow Derby, so it means so much more to the players. So it's all about the aggression. Scott Brownhill is going to be one of the key players, I think, in the midfield in that game. But Rangers do have a chance. Obviously, there's massive speculation as to who will become the manager there. It's been a bit of a yo-yo time for them at the moment. But Celtic will be favourites, but there's nothing to suggest that Rangers can't possibly progress, and we might even see a repeat of last year's final.
Well, Rangers did win 6-0 in the Cup competition against Hamilton, a fellow Premiership side, but despite this, they did batter them. St Mirren, on the other hand, held Celtic for about 56. It is 58 minutes, sorry, and they did hold Celtic on for after taking the lead very early on, but from that, I think it fell apart very quickly for St Mirren. Celtic getting 4 goals to seal off the win. Bryce, do you think maybe because of this, Celtic struggling against a championship side, a good championship side, facing that, whereas Rangers were playing a premiership side, this could swing the tide?
It's a difficult one to say. I think Celtic probably went out, not expecting much resistance from a team at the bottom of the championship. St Mirren have kind of done woefully in the championship this season. Not done well at all against basically any team, very few wins. So Celtic have come into this match thinking, they're just going to steamroll it. They've got players with far superior quality. So when they came out onto the pitch and St Mirren, they're not a pub team, they've gone, oh wait, what's going on here? Especially when you've got players like Dembele, who's not played St Mirren before, I don't think. So it's a new experience for them. They've got to get used to this new kind of championship physical football. So, yeah, it's a different experience.
Well, Dembele, as you just mentioned, is chasing that record of most debut goals in a season for Celtic. Gregor, can he get it?
I don't see why not. I mean, he's banging form at the minute. I think he was on course to nearly get a hat-trick of hat-tricks only a few weeks ago. So at this rate, I mean, he looks like... what's the record, just by chance?
I don't have it on me, but I think it's about 55 goals.
55. I mean, it's going to be difficult, but if he keeps up the record he's going, because he's getting doubles, he's getting hat-tricks on a regular basis at the minute, I mean, he could get near it. It would be some effort to get 55. But I don't see why not. He's definitely the best striker that Celtic have had, possibly since Henrik Larsson. So if it's his record, then there's a chance he could reach it.
Can he leave the legacy that Larsson left?
I'm not sure in this day and age he could stay. He would stay as long as Henrik Larsson did, because obviously the money's more tempting, and I suppose the player's got more control than the club has these days. But he can certainly bring the same quality and leave a similar impact that Henrik Larsson did. I think he'll certainly bring in a bigger fee than Henrik Larsson did in a few years. But I mean, you can see similarities between the two players, definitely.
And those fixtures of Hibs, Aberdeen, Celtic, Rangers will be played on the 22nd and 23rd of April respectively, both 3 o'clock fixtures. So if you can go to the games, if you can get a stream to watch them, then certainly do it. It will be a thriller to say that. And now we're going to go on to the Scottish Premiership results. From Wednesday, when we last aired, there was 4 games to talk about. Probably the talking point was that Rangers went against St Johnstone by 3 goals to 2. Maybe a comeback of results for Rangers, having struggled after the dismissal or the resignation, as we do understand, of Mark Warburton. Luke, would this result give confidence, and the quarter-final result give confidence going into this clash at Parkhead on Sunday?
It definitely can't harm the confidence, no, because the 2 positive results they've had on the bounce now. But obviously, as we just said, the Celtic game is a bit of a one-off, because it is much more than a football match. All derbies are like that, but the Celtic Rangers is just something else. It's beyond belief. But yeah, it is, as I mentioned before as well, it's been a bit of a strange month for Rangers. But they're maybe looking like they're perhaps turned the corner a little bit. 2 wins is not a bad way to go about it, going into a big derby. But of course, Celtic on the back of 2 wins as well. So both teams will be highly confident. But for Rangers themselves, I hope for their sakes they can sort out a manager and get the whole sort of club tree sorted out, so you can actually build and try and mount a serious challenge in the Scottish Premiership. Because I think for the casual neutral fan, they need a strong title fight. And at the minute, Celtic are a cut above.
Other results from that Wednesday night: Celtic travel up to Inverness to play Inverness Caledonian Thistle. They won by 4 goals to 0. Ross County, they travelled to Hearts. Just difficult results again for the manager Ian Cathell at Hearts. It was a 1-0 win for Ross County there. Dundee, they got beat by Partick Thistle by 1 goal to 0. And Kilmarnock, they also got defeated on Saturday by Motherwell with 2 goals to 1. Motherwell, who we previously mentioned, did sack their manager Mark McGee. Since then, that has obviously been an improvement instantly. They've got back a win after having the showering of poor results. Now we're going to Championship. Bryce will be loving this. We've got 2, not even 1, but 2 Dunfermline results to talk about. Dunfermline Athletic on the Saturday, they were playing Dumbarton. Dumbarton manager Stephen Aitken was on the show last week. If you did miss that, you can find that on the radio ENRG.net website. Please do check it out. It is a great interview, and thank you again for Stephen for coming on the show. But unfortunately for Stephen, his side was defeated by 5 goals to 1 in that game. Bryce, if obviously you cannot see, but does have a wee bit of a smile on his face considering that result. And then following that, they did play Queen of the South last night, which was a 1-1 draw. Dunfermline, they're doing quite well this season. They've come up in this league and they're sitting 7th out of 10th, considering it's the first season in the Championship, previous being League One. Would you say this has been a good season for Dunfermline so far?
Yeah, I mean, at the start of the season, I didn't really know what to expect. They'd kind of bossed League One. Lots of high-scoring matches, very few conceded. But I know that stepping up into the Championship, you've now got teams in there like Hibs and Dundee United, where they're still a very high-quality team, and it's going to be difficult to get any result against them. So, they're sitting quite comfortably in the middle of the table now. And I think if you'd offered me that at the start of the season, I would have been happy enough with that, a mid-table. They're continuing to score quite a lot of goals. Next season I'd like to see them shore up their defence a wee bit, but if they manage to do that, then hopefully, they can get into the top 4 and start, mounting a wee bit of a challenge, making them a more prominent team again.
Well, Stephen did say to us that the toughest side he had faced was Hibs, but I think he might change his mind after that 5-1 scoreline. But speaking of Hibs, we're going to go to them, unfortunately, for Gregor in the studio. Their league performance at St Mirren was appealing to say the least. They lost by 2 goals to 0 in Paisley against St Mirren. Is that a concern for you, Gregor, that maybe these players don't perform against the lower teams. Team that was low in the league who did also get a result was Dunfermline a few weeks ago. It was a 2-2 draw for them at Easter Road. Is it a concern that they maybe not take these other teams as seriously?
Yeah, it definitely is a concern. I think there's no doubt. I mean, the Hibs are a quality side, and they should be beating teams like. I mean, you've got no God-given right to beat. Because football doesn't work like that. But you'd expect them to beating teams like St Mirren, or at least, if not convincingly, at least trying to get any form of win. But really, in the match, you'd think St Mirren were the team that were leading the pack, and Hibs were the team near the bottom. And they're in a poor bit of form. I think they've got 3 points in the last 4 games, and 3 of them were draws. So they really need to get out of that. And Friday night's an interesting game against Dundee United, because I mean, Dundee United can take it back to just, I think, 4 points, and with a game in hand they could even make it 1. So I think that game, if Hibs can win that game, I think they'll possibly be okay, as long as they don't get complacent in the run up to the end of the season. Yeah.
Other results from the weekend: on Saturday, Queen of the South were host to Falkirk. Certainly someone I know would be loving to hear that, because Falkirk did leave Queen of the South with a 2-0 win. And that is the results from the Scottish fixtures. Scottish results. Fixtures, however, on in the Premiership this weekend. Aberdeen are being host to Motherwell on the Saturday. Also on the Saturday, Hearts will be playing Hamilton. Hearts do have to potentially come back from that loss against Ross County. Partick Thistle have been knocked out in the cup. They now face Inverness Caledonian Thistle. Ross County play Kilmarnock, St Johnstone play Dundee, but the big talking point of this weekend is Celtic versus Rangers, a big Glasgow clash there, and we'll be talking all about it next week, so please do tune in for that. In the Championship, tonight, Raith Rovers are playing St Mirren. St Mirren, have an impressive performance against Celtic in the Cup and having that win against Hibs, so they'll have that good stride going into this game against Raith Rovers. Also on the Friday, Dundee United, as Gregor mentioned, are being host to Hibs. Big game. We were talking before the show that Hibs could find their team's season. Who goes up, who wins the league, as well as another factor. On the Saturday, Ayr United are playing Falkirk. Dumbarton will be host to Raith Rovers. St Mirren will be playing Dunfermline Athletic. Bryce will be tuning in for that one, and Greenock Morton will be playing Queen of the South. So we usually do have a wee break here, but we are running out of time, so we're going to go to the England section quickly. There's a lot of results from the weekend. On Monday night, Chelsea travelled to London to play West Ham in the London Stadium. Another disappointing performance as well for Sam Billich's side. They did lose by 2-1, Chelsea being 2-0 up at one stage of the match. Chelsea now go 10 points clear at the top of the table. Look, can anyone stop them?
I hate having these questions where I have to be brutal and say no, but I don't think they can. With the amount of games that are left, there's only 11, I believe. They've built up such a lead, and they've built up such a reputation for being able to play a consistent level. Even if they're not at their best, they still manage to grind out a result. And I think ultimately that ability to play well and also be consistent and wanting to win and keep going is the mark of a champion. West Ham didn't play that well, but in theory they shouldn't be too disappointed to lose to Chelsea, because as we know, Chelsea are looking likely to be Premier League champions this year.
Well, our ghost host Michael Goggin has tweeted in with a fifth option for that Arsenal job. He has suggested Mark Warburton to go for the job, but we all, I think, highly doubt that will happen, Michael. But as always, thanks for your input. On the Sunday, Tottenham Hotspur, they won by 3-2 against Everton, a clash of the top Premier League strikers currently. That was Harry Kane and Romelu Lukaku. Harry Kane came on top in this fixture, getting 2, Lukaku getting 1. Is Harry Kane, can he be stopped, Gregor?
I mean, he's unbelievable form at the minute. I mean, just about got a hat-trick of hat-tricks at the weekend. He got a double to follow on from his 2 hat-tricks. He's possibly the best striker in the league at the minute. I mean, teams don't seem to be able to stop him. He can score and goals from any angle, all types of goals. And yeah, I mean, he's a tough man to stop at the minute, and I think he's going to be massive for Spurs in the run up to the end of the season.
And other results on this Sunday was Sunderland. They were host to Manchester City. Manchester City leaving with a 2-0 win. Struggles continue for Sunderland. They are bottom with 19 points. David Moyes' side are looking struggling, Bryce, to think, can they survive, or are they completely written off now?
I mean, looking at the table here, they are only You know, I think it's 6 points behind Crystal Palace, which is 2 matches. You know, it could change, but saying that, I think it's written in the stars that Sunderland have been in the bottom 3 for about the past 3 seasons, and they've just managed to kind of scrape it on the last day of the season. So, you know, maybe it's their time now.
And other results on the Saturday, Leicester City did go on 2 games in a row, winning, yes, and also having now 6 goals in the Premier League this year. In 2017, they didn't have any Premier League goals under Claudio Ranieri, but under Craig Shakespeare, who we do believe will be offered the job on a full-time basis until the end of the season. They did win 3-1 against Hull City, another, you could say, Groundhog Day fixture for Leicester City at the King Power Stadium, also beating Liverpool there on Monday night. Not last week. Was it last week? I do believe. Believe it was. Stoke City, they were playing Middlesbrough. They won by 2-0. Middlesbrough again struggling to score goals in the league, and potentially are now sitting in the relegation zone with 22 points and do potentially look likely to go down. Another relegation battle was Swansea City playing Burnley. It was a 3-2 thriller there. Swansea City coming out on top. And Paul Clement does look like he's really improved that side. Watford, they lost to Southampton a 4-3 thriller. Southampton coming back from the League Cup final to defeat to Manchester United, with Gabbiadini starring again in that fixture. He's really shined in that league since he has come back. Crystal Palace, they were at West Brom and left with a 2-0 win. I think since Sacco has started in that team with Van and Holt as well, they do look a really changed side and secure. I think Luke will be quite bitter about that, considering he is on loan from Liverpool, who hasn't got a look in due to disciplinary issues. But the big talking point was the 3-1 Liverpool win over Arsenal. Luke, can Liverpool secure top 4?
I think they have to save any kind of blushes from the season, especially having been at the top of the Premier League at one point. But you say it was the big talking point, but to be honest, to me, it doesn't surprise me at all, because the classic Liverpool thing to do these days is to beat the good teams. Klopp has an incredible record. He hasn't lost to any of the top 6 opposition, but it's always against the so-called smaller teams, with the teams at the bottom half of the table where Liverpool tend to slip up. So it was a good performance from Liverpool, and not the best from Arsenal, but the key for Liverpool now is to try and convincingly get back to the form they had and beat these teams lower in the table. And the top 4 it's going to be pretty tough. Arsenal, Liverpool and United are all sort of fighting out there. Tottenham and City are maybe a tiny bit ahead. Obviously we know Chelsea are about 10 points ahead, clear at the top of the tree.